So one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and really my whole talk is based off this one premise. It's that we've really kind of like combined terms of conversion rate optimization and split testing, and we're almost made them analogous. And that's really not the case, all right? Split testing is a mechanism for optimization, and we've all heard the term like always be testing, like that's like, you know what, Brian Eisenberg said that. I think somebody today said that because it was going through the Twitter feed that someone said always be testing. And I don't think it's always be testing. It's like you should always be analyzing and then coming up with meaningful tests. So that's really what I want to talk about today is that we're always optimizing, we're always trying to optimize, but we're not necessarily going to like this, you know, standard split test condition. And I want to try to get us away from that. So first, let's cover some A/B testing basics. I can probably fly through this because it's a small room and there aren't a lot of people here that are like, hey, I don't know what testing is. I think that was the intermediate portion here. But so types of tests, you have synchronous versus asynchronous. Synchronous is normally just kind of like a big old bummer because timing, as it stands, like you're not really taking time into consideration again. I actually have a diagram in a second I'll show you. And then asynchronous being the standard A/B test that we talk about. You know, you split some traffic, breaks down which one won out. And then multivariate testing, which gets a bit more advanced, where they're looking at, you know, like a full factorial framework of how different elements interact on those pages and how they roll out. And that's really reserved for probably the top 1% of companies that have that type of traffic to be able to pull that off. All right, so first, synchronous testing. So here's an example of just like how someone would do a synchronous test. You have they have a predetermined timeline of July 1st versus July 15th. And then they'd have this variation, and then July 16th versus July 30th. Now, I think we could all see with synchronous the major problem that's going on here. And if someone were to look at this and run a test like this on your site, what's the first thing you'd say to them? Okay, so, yep. Yeah, that's a good one too, especially for if you're running a site that's like, I got Sweet America pants, like you got a holiday going on, so there's holiday issues. Yeah. Oh yeah, like between like the influx and the differential in traffics between this one and this one will be very different, especially because of the seasonality issue that's in there. So they are not taking time out. Time is still a factor. When you're doing an asynchronous test, on the other hand, it's happening all at the same time, and you're splitting things out from there. So that's really what an A/B test is doing. It's like it's similar time frames. You can designate your actual referral traffic, what type of traffic you want to be using, and you can really kind of be in much more control. Whereas this one right here, sure, you could also look at, you know, only testing specific traffic sources, but you're still letting time, and time is a B. It's a big old B that's going to really hurt you if you're not considering it. So here's another example. So here's ABN testing going further. You're going to get page conversion data, really not element by element, unless you only change a single element. And it's better for generally lower traffic sites that are trying to understand, you know, different layout changes. Like this is really kind of like the go big or go home. If you're doing kind of more iterative tests there, you might not be able to make kind of the bigger gains if you're a low traffic site. Some rules, you need to isolate your individual elements. If you're not isolating them and you're running a test, like an A/B test, and you're saying, if you're not isolating them, then you're just really going to be making conclusions that are likely incorrect. Say you change 3 variations and you go, all right, this variation won out, and maybe falsely you'll say, well, we really made this one font larger, so that has to be the reason why things have changed. That might not be the case because you haven't isolated your variables. And then multivariate testing is where you'll get element by element data. I really don't recommend running multivariate tests unless you're getting like 100,000 page views per month. And that's even like, you probably could still do better things. Their multivariate test is really reserved for the higher end clients and the higher end people there. And multivariate testing actually, it comes up now on most surveys when people talk about industry surveys that are out there where they talk about, oh, you know, what testing tactics are you using? And they have multivariate as a check mark. It always ends up at the bottom. And generally it's perceived as the more difficult one to do. And it's likely perceived that way because it's not giving them the results they need because they don't have the traffic to do it. And they can't really comprehend the idea of this kind of full factorial methodology there. So before I give A/B testing some love, I just jumped in and started talking. I don't think anybody knows who the hell I am in here. So I'm gonna give a little like props to myself for a hot minute, and then we'll move in. So my name is Justin Rondeau, and I am the conversion optimization manager at digitalmarketer.com. In a previous life, I worked at a site called Which Test One, where we publish split tests weekly and other such things. And before that, I was the director of marketing at a software company, where I was just doing full-on optimization work. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today almost goes directly in contrast to what I spent the last 3 years of my life doing, which was evangelizing split testing. I love it, and I'm going to give it some love right now. But really what's going on here is there's a lot of crappy information out there. And it's telling people you can always be testing. You should always be testing. When, again, it comes back down to you should always be optimizing and finding when you should be testing. Not everybody can, nor should they be testing. And so that's really what that's pretty much my whole talk today. I'll give you some baselines, and then if you can't test, what you can do next. Currently, right now, digitalmarketer.com, we're about 500,000 unique visits per month. It's kind of like the incubator for our holding company that has, we have 23, we cover 23 different industries as a whole, where we test out some of the ideas that we talk about there. So we do a lot of testing and a lot of optimizing, and they're very different things, okay? I built my entire career, as you can hear, I built my entire career around split testing. That's all I've really done. I've only done optimization, and I've only really done split testing. I haven't really done great Photoshop. So this is me and A/B testing forever in a tree. All right, and the reason I like it so much is the only way to get definitive answers in a really clean environment, okay? You're in a test environment, that's great. And so you're actually able to get some answers and see what's going on. And it also helps guide decisions and improve the user experience while boosting profits. If you're doing that right. If you're not just testing vanity metrics, so to say. So testing right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's getting the conversion rate optimization conversation started more at organizations. It's gotten our foot in the door. So this was a study actually done by Which Test One last year for their State of Online Testing report, where they had said, will organizations hire more testing staff over the next 12 months? And I think the most interesting thing here is this one right here, is staff reductions at 0, okay? Everybody is all hyped up about testing. It's because, honestly, A/B tests are super, super sexy. Like, hey, I made a slight change, and look at this lift. 89.97% lift, everybody. Okay, we just went from natural joint relief to natural joint relief supplement. So that's really, really sexy, okay? Take a look at another one. Okay, we have a form here, and we have a trustee certified privacy, and without it. And every single person would probably be like, oh, man, without that logo, they're totally going to crash and burn. What? They didn't. 12.6% lift in submissions without it. That was a really awkward S. I think that was a formatting issue. But 12.6% lift, that goes against everything I've ever believed. How cool is that? I'm going to share that with everybody. We should be split testing. All right. Privacy policy, 100% privacy. We will never spam you. All right. Oh, man, drop in submission. I need to tell my developer we got to take those off. But wait a second. We guarantee 100% privacy. Your information will not be shared. 19.47% lift. Craziness, right? These are all things that are super shareable, really awesome, and what have gotten really the A/B testing hype going around there. Like, A/B testing is optimization. We will make so much more money once we start doing this. And really, there's one big problem. One massive, 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 massive problem. And that's everyone wants to test even when they can't. Even when they can't. How many people in here have had clients that wanted to test when you know for sure they can't test? Actually, wait, let me stop. Do you know when a client shouldn't be testing? Or when you shouldn't be? By a show of hands, do you know when you shouldn't be? Okay, so we have 2. It's still a good percentage. So you can manipulate data all you want, okay? But everyone wants to test when they know they can. So today we're going to talk about when you shouldn't be testing, okay? So simply put, not everyone can or should be split testing. What? But not being able to test doesn't mean not being able to optimize. There are plenty of ways to boost conversions outside of split testing. I also want to tell everybody here, if you have a question or if I'm getting too excited about stuff and jumping through, please interrupt me and ask me questions. I'll repeat them out and then it's good for video, and also probably good for everybody. Because if you have a question, likely other people do too. And I don't practice things, so there's no script. So just go ahead. All right. So today, in a nutshell, as we're going to go through, we're going to cover when you can test, should you actually test, and what to do when you can't or shouldn't. Part 1, can I actually run a test? So testing eligibility. Here it is right here. This is what I'm going to say. If you can't get that, oh wait, I have an arrow for this one. If you can't get 100 conversions per variation, conversion actions, whether that be clicks, sales, leads, etc., you define the action, that becomes your conversion. All right. That is kind of the major baseline I like to look at. These are some other fun things that come down to actual test procedure, where you run a test for at least a full week, mainly because everything, like people act differently on a Monday than they do on a Wednesday, likely on a Wednesday and a Friday as well. I don't like running tests for longer than 8 weeks, mainly because, do I talk about, no, I'll do this right now. All right, reason why I don't like doing things longer than 8 weeks is because there's 3 outcomes to a split test. Does anybody know those 3 outcomes? There's a lift. Yep, there's a lift, drop, or no difference, okay? If you run a test generally for longer than 8 weeks, you're making the assumption that you're getting rid of the no difference option. You're only assuming there's a lift or a loss. So you're taking out one of the very possible, actually more probable outcomes of running a split test, which is that null, okay? And then you want to talk about 95% confidence level. That's making sure that there's a 5% chance that it's a type 1 error, which is a false positive. So you don't want to get any false positives there. So here's a little fun chart, and I urge people, like, I think you guys get slides, right? That happens? They're online? Okay. If you like pictures, that makes me look cool too. But conversion per day chart. So I'm basing this off of the 100 conversion threshold. And generally, if you're asking how many conversions do I need per day, you're not going to go into 3, 4, 5 different variants. You're probably still stuck in the 2. And also, this red right here is getting into the past 6-week line. That's why I made that, like, you can still do it, but I don't approve of that. And I have actually, let's just talk about the 2 variants. Oops, nope, we're not going to just talk about, I don't have that slide. The 2 variants here. So say you want to run a test first. You have 7 days that you want to kind of I want to run this test in 7 days. If you are running with 2 variants, you need to have 29 converting actions per day for each variation. If you can't do that, go to 14 days. Can you get 15 converting actions per day? Yes or no? If no, move on. For 3 weeks, can you get 10 per variation? And further on, I don't need the numbers are there, people can see them. I think it makes sense there. So this is just a nice little thing to at least baseline. There's other factors that go into test length and how long they're going to be going, but this is the bare minimum. Okay? If you're like, I'm going to run a test and it's going to be done in 7 days, it's like, you sure as hell better be getting that 29 per variant right there. And then as it goes up, it gets much larger. So here's an example of a split test that was run that, and they're like, yeah, this is a good test. And they published it on their website. Like, this is good. So let's take a look at these results here, okay? We have, one, this is an awesome. They're like plus 55% percent improvement. That's amazing. 92% confidence level. But then you get in here, getting the ugly stuff. Those sample sizes, way too small, okay? So what do? The problem, there's not enough conversions, clearly. The solution here is really you just have to run it longer. But if you can't run it longer, you don't split test here. Like it's not a high opportunity page. The reason why this looks almost statistically significant, statistically relevant, is because the lift is so darn high. Okay? When you have plus 55%, at a higher lift entails a smaller sample size because it's because of the effect that's occurring there. Okay? So keep that in mind. Like, the data in here, it's in a vacuum. Statistically, if you don't apply these numbers, cool, it works. But when you actually start applying them and looking at the sample sizes and looking at, what's the lever that's being pulled down right here? And it's like, this massive lift is kind of hiding our low sample size right here. And this is clearly, I think there's no one in here that I think would be willing to say this is something they'd be okay with making a business decision upon, correct? That's why most case studies online don't show raw data. All those split tests and things you see online, they don't show them. Don't trust them unless they show it. Because in most cases, they're hiding something, and they're masking it with the lift. You see something that says 300%, be like, well, what were the numbers? We have to test smarter and not be fooled by a lot of those things out there. So variable number, as I just showed, it isn't the only other thing that dictates time. The percent lift, as I was just saying, was. So here's an example. When you're looking at pages, so this is a forecasting tool I use called GPower3. It's a statistical calculator by the Universität Düsseldorf. Very good. So what I like to look at here is if you're going to a page and you're like, I want to run a test on this page, and say you're traffic challenged. Let's not say low traffic anymore. Let's say traffic challenged. If you're traffic challenged, you have to actually go for the big swing. You need to make sure you're going to have a big enough effect size. So say you go to a page and you're like, all right, I'm going to run a test here, but what effect size would I need to see for it to be statistically significant? You can run this run this type of power analysis where it computes the required effect size given the confidence level, the statistical power, and the sample size that you have. And so I did a sample size of, for each variation, 5,000 each. And my power I could actually probably put down to like 0.8, but we don't need to talk about that really. That's fine. And then 0.05 is a 95% confidence level. And so right here, so I started with a 20%, say like the page is a 20% conversion rate currently. What effect do I need to see for this sample size in order for it to be a significant test? It would have to be a 10% lift. And you have to ask yourself, is this a page I can get a 10% lift on before you even start building the test out, okay? So if it's something you don't see getting, like if you see something that's like, it needs to be 50%, you're probably not gonna wanna run that. And this is something that could actually happen. So you'd be like, you know what, I'm cool with that. This is actually, this example was for a company I was working with in Australia, and they're like, yeah, we get 10,000 uniques. I was like, what's a conversion rate on a page? And we just pull this out. And they're like, as soon as they saw 10%, they're just like, yeah, we can totally do this. And then we tried another one. They're like bummed out because they're just never going to happen. And then confidence rate as well is another important thing. So the first thing you have to do before you even get into actual testing is, can I test? So does your page get enough daily conversions? Yes or no? Yeah. Oh, wow, that got weird. Yes, you want to ask this question. No, you can't split test. So is there a big enough lift potential? The thing I just showed you there. So definitely look up G. It's G, like asterisk power. If you Google that, you'll find it. You'll have the screenshot of this, of how I set up the test. It needs to be a Z test with proportions. And then when you're in power analysis, you can pick different types, and that's all cool. But make sure you're in Z test proportions. Just make sure. So is there a big enough lift potential? Yes? No? If there is, this is a testable page. Awesome, we found something that we could possibly test. If not, can't test. Sorry, can't do it. Move on, try something else. So now, just because you can run a test doesn't necessarily mean you should. We have to have some sort of common sense here, okay? So I like to look at what I call the conversion hierarchy. This is actually something Brian Eisenberg came up with, and I'm just kind of more sharing with you, and I made it green. Okay, so fits within branding. So first, is it a functional issue? Or when you look at the page, is the conversion dip-off a functional issue? Does the page work as it's supposed to? So for instance, if you have a 404 page, what are you supposed to do there? Mostly, it's like you get to a 404 page and it's just blank. Like this, at least they have go to home page on there. We do something similar that says, oh, you've landed on the 404 page, and we try to get them to our blog or something. But for e-commerce sites, if you have a 404 page, if you add like some sort of offer there, be like, oh man, you found the wrong thing, but based on a keyword, like based on something in the URL or the search they were looking for, that they hit that, and you can get them a relevant offer there, that's gonna really help your conversions out. That's a functional issue, just pure function. You don't test that. You don't test, should I add an offer on a 404 page of some kind? You don't test that. You test what the offer is, okay? So that's something you just add to it. That's a functional change. And then this is even like a higher level. This is a higher level function. Another function would be like the page is just broken, doesn't render correctly. Do you test a non-rendered page versus a rendered page? No, absolutely not. But with it, when people say always be testing, that rhetoric starts getting everywhere, and it starts really like it's why we can't have nice things as optimizers, to be absolutely honest. Okay, So next up the conversion threshold is accessible. Can people of all skill levels on any device use the site? All right. What are the barriers on the site? Here's an example of a mobile site where you're trying to fill in some information, like date and time. That sucks. It's like really bad. Okay, that's a lot of work. Don't make them work. Don't make them think. Way better. Okay, and that's just a bit of code you have to put on things, but it's overlooked. Would I test this? Absolutely not. It's an accessible issue from a device standpoint. That just makes the user experience that's much better. Conversion rate optimization is about making the user experience better so that they take the desired action that you'd want them to. Okay? Usable. So usability gets into a bit of a gray area here, but can people understand your site? Is it user-friendly? Okay? Does the site have a logical flow, or does the offer match the source? We talk about like offer congruency and those types of things. How many PPC ads do you see? Go like, oh, hey, my favorite is an iPhone one. I always used to do this example of iPhone chart. Yeah, here we go. Type in iPhone, I go to Sprint, and Sprint says, give me your location. I was like, what? I want an iPhone. Are you kidding me? And they're just losing money. They're hemorrhaging money because they were the number one in the PPC slot for iPhone. They were beating Apple. Like, it's a bummer, okay? So this has to go down to it from the usability standpoint. Then you move to intuitive, I just talked about. And then persuasive, is your site convincing people? Persuasion and split testing are kind of like, you use a lot of persuasive acts when you're trying to split test, whether it be a persuasion factor of structure or a persuasion factor of copy. All right, and so that's really, again, the tip top. There's other things you can do on your site that are going to make things better. So anything that's kind of like functional, accessible, and usable, that's a general just fix. Well, usable also gets a little bit of layover from the testing as well, because you actually have to run usability tests to find things out and see if that's worth working on. Up here is just that this is kind of the more testing area, and that makes the grossest color in the middle, but that's what I could do to make it actually look different on a black background. All right, so for every test you run, there are an infinite amount of other tests that you could have run. That was my boy Justin Damas who said that, okay? And that blew my mind when he told me that, okay? So just keep that in mind. There's an opportunity cost in every single thing you do. Make sure you're doing it correctly. If it's something you need to fix it. Don't test it because there's cost there. If it's something that's actually test-worthy that should be in that upper echelon, then do that. So part 3, how to do this how to optimize if you can't/shouldn't test. All right, you have a few options. Evaluate your offer. One of the things I like to do is try on-site retargeting, and then changes based on qualitative research. So evaluate the offer. I've said a lot of times no one really has a traffic problem. It's an offer problem, okay? You can go to the traffic store whenever you want and get it, right? Similarly, it's not a testing problem, it's an offer problem. So here's actually our customer value optimization model that we use at DM. And so one of the things we say is like determining your product market fit. Is your offer something that resonates with them? Okay, so you might actually have to head back to the drawing board completely because you're not spot on. And I want to ask you, then you have to actually ask yourself, does my product or service actually provide the value I'm saying it is? And if that's your problem, that's actually a much bigger one. Like you're in the wrong industry. Okay, you also might be going after the wrong traffic source. Maybe like you have a great offer, but they're not hanging out over there. Like your pure clients aren't hanging out on that traffic source you're trying to exploit, okay? We do very well on Facebook ads, but oh my God, we stink at Google ads. And then we hired an agency because we're bad at doing this. We assumed we were bad at it. And so we did it, and we gave it to an agency, and they're bad at it too because our customers just aren't there. And anybody we'd want to go after would just be probably enterprise people. If they're going to type email marketing in, I'm going to spend $60 per click. That's not in our best intentions there. So try on-site retarget. Okay. So what is on-site retargeting? It's evaluating current interactions and providing a relevant offer based on their interactions, okay? So you can do things like time on site, exit intent, number of page views, referring source, type of content consumed. This is actually one we did, and it's really hard for you to see this, so when you get the slides, please come back and look at these slides. All right, so what I did here is we made different qualifications for getting this offer as people were trying to leave. We had, they couldn't come from our newsletter source. They had to spend at least 15 seconds on the site, and they didn't go on on our members page or any of our members pages. So if they hit this one and we're about to leave and didn't have those referencing sites, they were going to get this offer. Yeah, this is Optimonk that we use for this. It's super powerful. We're not an affiliate of them at all, but Optimonk. My buddy Kasaba. I think that's how you say his name. It's a tough one to say. But when we implemented this, so just under half of all of our offer page views, so the page that it would go to, came from this. So when we launched this, so here's all offers. People that saw that page, the next page, was 5,211, and over half of them, or just under half, sorry, we're at the 2,485. Oh, no, it's over half. Were from this offer. So over half was driven there from people that were going to leave. And so our typical campaign conversion rate of people who saw that page was 69%. With that exit pop, went to 80.7. And it's not just because we use an exit pop to try to exploit exits, but we did it in a way where they were kind of the right type of traffic. That was our general offer. We also did it with more specific offers. For if Facebook was in the URL, they got a Facebook offer. If blog was in there, they got a blog offer. But when we did this method, we got 2,689 more leads in 14 days. We have a lot of volume still, but oh my God. And people have found that respondents targeting more than 20% of their visitors with personalized content achieve a 5% conversion rate, which is double that of what the standard conversion rate is, and that's by Adobe right there. And so all on-site retargeting is kind of like a more rugged version of real-time personalization. And a lot of real-time personalization stuff costs a bunch of money and a lot of work. That's fairly easy, and it'll help you out. And we didn't need to test that. That was just, we have opportunity, let's exploit opportunity. Page changes based on research. You have A/B testing. That's, but then Hemingway principle right here, the iceberg one. It's like all the research that goes in. Look at how many people don't, I'm going to have to go super fast here because I bet I'm going over. So everybody's looking at web analytics and things from other sites, but look at the bottom here. Usability studies, visitor surveys, eye tracking, personas, and those types of things, all under the 50% threshold of people that use that stuff to create test ideas and optimization campaigns. This is good for you. This is going to change in a year. There's a lot of marketing going around for people like Hotjar and Crazy Egg and those that people are starting to see how this can help them out. But not a lot of people are still using these as much as web analytics, okay? Here are a few things to try. Click, scroll tracking, usability testing, surveys, session recordings. Here's an example of click and scroll tracking, showing where people are clicking on here. This was done with Crazy Egg. We're testing out Hotjar right now. It's awesome. Awesome. Again, don't work for them. It's just something I really like. And I can tell you stories about that after, about the stuff I learned from them. This is an example of scroll tracking, where the hottest spots, being the red, being where people are scrolling to, like the percentage of. And notice down here, we still don't have a lot. We had a lot of people clicking, but not a lot of people scrolling. So what could I learn from this, okay? I saw people who actually scroll the bottom click. Not enough people are scrolling that far down. 15% of all clicks on the page are on the nav bar at the top. So things I could do, try a shorter variation to get people to scroll to the call to action. Add multiple call to action buttons at higher areas where scrolling is highest, or hide the nav bar completely. These are things you can test out. So this is building up a hypothesis of some kind, okay? And then usability testing, usability hub, use it. It's awesome. 5-second tests, click testing, all those things. And it's based off a karma system. It's awesome. And you can pay, but whatever. User surveys as well. This is a pretty important slide of questions you should ask in user surveys. Thankfully, you're getting all these because I don't want to read them. All right? And here's people that can do this for you. Hotjar, SurveyMonkey, Qualaroo, Formstuck. Session recordings. This just blew my mind. I went through 2,000 session recordings, and it was sweet. And I learned a lot, and I will tell you that when we talk after. I have to go super fast now. It blows minds. Tricks to test when you don't have the traffic. Use microconversions as an indicator. So remember this nice little chart I showed you there with those two variations. I didn't have the traffic. It was a funnel that we weren't running traffic to, and it was just really kind of more organic stuff coming through. And I didn't really have a great amount of traffic coming to it. And I had 3 different goals. So I was using these up here as microconversions. Notice really quickly. Oh, that's backwards. Notice quickly how the normalization occurred between those. So I'm like, here, I'm under conversions. It's 29.35 on the purchase side. Add to cart, still pretty low. But notice the normalization between all 3 different goals. I was willing to say, you know what, that's a null test. It doesn't matter which one, because notice they all don't have a lift. They're just, I'm okay. Like when it goes to null, that's personal preference at that point, just to let you know. we can talk about that one after too. You can lower your confidence threshold. Say you have lift 20%, confidence rate 95%, required sample size 7,682. You have a lift of 20% at a confidence rate of 90%. You see a 21% decrease in the number of in the traffic required, but you have an increase in type 1 errors that could occur in false positives. So just make that known. And remember, please, 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 if you take one thing away from this, please, please, other than the tech I told you to try out, split testing is not optimization. It's an optimization tool. There's all sorts of different optimization tools out there. Split testing, just right here. So it can actually hurt a company when you're doing it wrong and using bad data sets. So please practice testing with a page that matters. Okay? Thanks. Let's talk more. I love to talk. I had to speed through the end. I'm really sorry about that. That's my email. I love emails. I work from home. It's my Twitter. That's a good ego push for me. And that's our website, digitalmarketer.com. All right, cool. Thank you. Cool. Are there any questions? I went really fast at the end. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so she wanted to know the tech tools I talked about. So the first one I talked about was GPower 3, which was a statistics calculator. That thing's free. I talked about OptiMonk, which is the on-site retargeting exit pop tool. And I talked about Hotjar, FormStack, and Crazy Egg. Cool. Any other questions? Yes. No, I've not. What was the name of it? I'm going to repeat it in them. Okay, have I tried 40 nuggets? And I have not. I want to hear about it, though. I like trying things. So, cool, awesome. Anything else? All right, super sorry about how fast I had to go at the end. I'm around all day, so